All right, we're recording.
Recording.
Okay,
We're gonna call the meeting to order.
with the roll call.
Roll call. To my right.
Dennis Malloy. Paul Sanderson.
And
Bob Krasko.
Vaughn Morgan.
Jim Marchese, building inspector.
Kevin Forrest will be here in a few minutes. And John Miller and Leonard Schwab will be absent.
This is the building committee of Greenland Fire Station. We're here to discuss, we need to make an agenda how we want to proceed with this. And we, first off, I think we need to agree on the location.
Could I just interject here?
Sure.
I think first order of business would probably be to organize the committee, to appoint a chairman and a co-chairman. And well, let's start with that. And I'd like to start by appointing Ralph Presta as chairman.
I'll take that as a motion, and I will second that motion.
Okay.
I think the second chair should be Paul Sanderson.
And I will entertain a motion, second that motion too. But let's take care of the first motion first, all right? Everybody in favor of Ralph Presta being chair?
Aye.
Okay. Everybody in favor of Paul Sanderson being co-chair?
Aye.
All right, and it is my, I think it'd be a good idea if the chair, Ralph Presta, would be available to break a tie vote should a tie vote occur.
Okay, and that'll be our only procedural rule. The others just being that we treat this as a meeting of an advisory committee to a public body, so therefore subject to the right to know law. We'll notice our meetings, we will record, we'll take minutes, and make a report to the selectmen.
Okay. All right. Let's see, Charlotte Hussey had a few questions she wanted answered. I think should be answered before we start also. I think Paul addressed several of those. Is there a rule that members texting each other on the committee issues? Or should communications be done through email?
Well, because we're under the right to know law, the things that we communicate with each other outside of our public meetings could potentially become records that would be subject to disclosure. Texts are very hard to do that way, other than for things procedurally like should it be Tuesday at 7 or Wednesday at 7:30, some procedural things like that. But anything substantive, we should make sure that we have it done in a public meeting and we're not making decisions over email.
Okay. Everybody understands and agrees with that?
Yes,
Okay. See, there will be agendas. I think once we finish with the meeting, we'll set up what the next step is going into the next meeting.
I think this is what we're trying to do.
Meetings will be recorded and they will be put on the website. Okay. I'm going to ask Charlotte if she would be gracious enough to do the minutes and ask her if she would post them on the website. Okay? And just so you know, Charlotte has provided geotech, what would you call these things?
Mapping?
Mapping.
We've started to pull out town records, and it turns out that when the existing public works building was purchased, there were some initial studies that were done back in 2013 of a phase 1 and a phase 2 environmental site assessment report. We have those records. And I don't think any of us have really gone through them to understand what they mean yet.
Right.
Okay. I think in general, what we understand is that all of the area here at Town Hall is essentially filled property. Okay, that if we were going back 35 or 40 years, nothing would be built here,
Right.
But in fact, it was all filled. And so we have significant limitations here at the site based upon the fact that it was filled, and we have a high groundwater table. We're also,
Prior to the filling, it was swamp.
yes. We're also in the aquifer protection zone. which means that we have to be very careful of groundwater, anything that goes into groundwater. So we have to take a look at that. So to go on what Ralph started with, which was to figure out where we want to put it, we have to figure out what this place can even take before we can do that. And Jim's capabilities as building inspector and also your engineering knowledge would be very helpful to help us figure out what the devil can we even do.
Right.
You know, and it isn't so much from a zoning perspective with setbacks and things like that. It's more from a very practical perspective of if we're going to create a facility that has a certain amount of septic load, where would we put that septic load? Do we have systems that can take it or not? Do we have areas for septic disposal or not? What information do we need to get that we don't have to figure out whether we can even do this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then within the site, we have really two alternatives. One is the existing public works land, and the second is the existing location of the fire department and what were the old public works but are now salt buildings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that area. Those are really the two places on this site that you could look at. And they each have pros and cons.
Yeah.
I'm not wedded to either one. I just got to figure out what can be done. And I think we do have some geotechnical information apparently in the file on the public works side. I have no idea what we would have here. If this was built in 1978, we would have had Digger Dick do a couple of holes.
You're right. You bring the machine up tank, put a piece of beer right there, he'll take care of it.
Yeah.
That was
So
Digger
long,
Dick.
so this wasn't junk cars that we're ready to build.
Right, right.
It was that bad.
I know.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine that.
Getting back to the septic a little bit if we can, because I think that's a big to do where we want to be. When does that septic say was built, Jim?
It just so happens I was lucky enough to find the police station site plan, which was relatively recently done in 2002. And you can see that here's the police station, the parking lot. They have a force main that comes across and goes to the septic system, which is part of the municipal building. And
This is
this is
town hall, fire station,
right.
and
This is everybody,
PD.
and it all goes. It gets pumped up to the top of this hill, where it gets treated and released.
Now, do you have a date when this was put in?
Yeah, 2002.
So it was, that system was put in?
I take that back, though. If you look at this system, this is the existing leach field. This is the leach field for the police station. So they're not connected. They're two separate systems. They're separated by 20 feet.
Do your plans there have test pit data that would help you?
I'm sure that the actual leach field design is going to be available somewhere where it's so recent, and that should have more information on it that would definitely be helpful.
Do we have a septic plan for our public works now next door, when that house was there? Do we have anything on that at all?
No,
That goes back to the 60s and,
Yes.
not that I've seen.
And I think that's right. The house that was there, that septic system probably goes back to the 60s.
and I'm not saying we never use
House
it.
or whatever they used to have.
I never use it, but we could figure out if we could build one there. Correct?
We have the boring data that was found when the site was purchased. There was all kinds of monitoring wells and borings that were done to make sure there was no contaminated waste.
Did you read
On the
through that
site.
yet?
I have gone through the information.
And what-
I have tabbed the information that I thought was important to help everybody look at it.
I'll give it to you, maybe you can just sort of summarize.
But there was
Yeah.
nothing significant that was found on the site. Obviously, there was a lot of work done to make sure the town wasn't getting a rotten egg with the purchase, which is very smart for the town to do. But
again, as we talked about earlier, high water table is an issue. Exactly what the elevation difference is, I don't recall, but I know there is information. I would not even come near doing any type of design work. This is all pieces of the puzzle that a licensed professional designer will need and will have readily available. You won't have to go out and recreate any of this information.
So that's really good news.
That's great news.
We know more than we thought we knew.
Yep.
So, looking at that, and you doing what you do, is it possible we can put a septic over there, or it is an impossibility?
It's definitely looks like a possibility to me, yeah.
Of you reading through
Of
that?
adding on to this existing lease.
Oh, okay, so you're saying still pump it over, nothing,
pump it over.
nothing on that property?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so you would have the option of building it here or here, whatever, when you decide.
because one, and I think everybody knows how strongly I feel about public safety on one side of the driveway and have the town hall on the other, and whatever else you're gonna do, down the road.
Okay. Question on the geotech. Does that give us any idea what sort of a weight of building that soil can take with the high water table? Would we be able to put a building of the type that John Ritchie is thinking of here on that type of soil, or don't we know?
I'd have to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the things that we don't know yet, that we need to know is figuring out what reserve septic capacity do we have based upon the existing plans. In other words, if it could take X amount of gallons per day and we've used 80% of it, 90% of it, I don't know, whatever that turns out to be, what do we have left for capacity? And then the second part is using that geotechnical information to figure out if it can hold up the weight of a building of the type that John wants to design.
Now, and this is another question for Jim, is it possible of, if we had to dig out if we happened to be clay or something, dig out some of that and use some of the dirt that we own up behind the transfer station to redo something like that? If we found,
Yeah, if you found that it was unsuitable material
Yeah.
on site and you had.
because we have the materials, am I correct?
Sure
in
do.
saying that?
A lot of,
So we got some pretty good gravel, if I
yeah,
remember right.
There's gravel, but the other part of it is, just think of it, that you're putting something heavy floating on top of a bed of water. And so it isn't always just the gravel. It may be that you need to put some pilings in to get down to bedrock to bear the weight. And that, I do not know, that's a question for a geotechnical engineer.
No, can they tell us that by,
I gotta look and see how deep the borings are.
okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have that yet, okay.
They may or may not have gone to bedrock.
And you will look into that for us?
Can you, sorry for being late here, but just backing up, so like, mission of this group, I don't know, like, what's been approved, or like, are you still trying to figure out, like, what size fire department you need, or is that all part of the planning, or I guess I'm just trying to.
Ritchie Construction, and sat down myself, out of the goodness of my heart, and did some plans of what we thought was a good sized fire station, and things we need, in the fire station. And the other thing I asked Mr. Ritchie to do is if we built this and we wanted to add to this, make it able to be added to.
I was gonna
So we
say,
get the next piece of land per se, and I'm not saying we can right away, and I'm not saying this is too small. But if something, if 30 years down the road, none of us will be sitting here anyway, and if they need to add on to this, I'd like to
maybe.
maybe.
speak for yourself.
So there was that question, Kevin, but first we said, let's not make the mistake the library made. Let's find out what this site can do.
Right.
So I don't know what our septic capacity is. We need to figure that out.
But also, I guess, you're right, as far as, as a building to, current need, or I mean, projected growth of Greenland, are we at least thinking that 20 years out of,
That's-
what needs to be?
That's why I was thinking of making this building addable,
Okay.
to add on to it. And I think that's a pretty smart way to do it. Because right now, the building size we have, and it is, what do we got for a total there? It's 84 feet deep.
By 90,
Is it 90?
58 and 30.
Yep. 88 feet long.
Where do we stand on like warrant articles and approvals and moving forward and any of that piece from the last time I was sitting
If we were
here?
to go this year, we need to pretty well be settled on that by December. So we have this interim period to figure out what it would be and then try to get some idea of a cost.
So this is developing the ask.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
right.
Okay.
But where I was really adamant about not getting started on the building until we figured out what the site can do. Because I don't know what our septic capacity is. I don't know if geotechnically that place can hold the weight. I just don't know. Because what we do know is that this was a swamp. And-
But we're sold on this area just because of its central location in Greenland or
Plus
something?
we own it.
Well, okay, so,
It is centrally located, by the way, and I think that was talked about when this building was built years ago.
And all fine, but we're finding, especially on the library side of things, that the site limitations are what is controlling their program. And I don't want to make that same mistake.
certain things you can change and certain things you can't, but I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, if we find out, based on whatever, 20 year from now plan of what the fire department should be, I mean, if we find out that this site can't hold it for whatever reason, though, I guess it's back to the drawing board to figure out then what other
Right.
location would be.
Of course, we have, we talked about this earlier. We have the site we're on now. Is it a good site? It's probably no different than the site over there.
Mhm.
I think we're on wetlands, and I think it was all filled in. And I think we just, it was back in the day. And are we lucky to have it? Yeah.
And I would guess that under the building we're sitting in, there are no borings. We have no idea what's under here.
Someone took 6 inches of dirt off and put 7 inches of concrete and said, let's go to work.
That could easily be, I mean, anecdotally, we know in the wintertime that because of the radiant cold coming up, there's probably a lot of groundwater under here that's bathing this concrete slab in water and turning it into an ice cube.
It's like pre-code.
Oh, yeah. But that would kind of go along with what we know to be true, which is high water table. We have no idea what level of soil got put in here at any idea, no idea. So, for example, let's suppose you decided, I want to put a second story on here or a second story on the fire. I have no idea if that can take away, and so we just got to figure out those limits before we start designing something that effectively can't be built.
Isn't the assumption with, like with the dump, when all that gravel that was there, I mean, does that gravel pit extend down into this area and stuff too, or I don't know?
That's a good question. I don't know either.
Well, I think we know from Crasco Field that it doesn't.
That's
Oh, really? Okay.
Believe me, I know what's underneath there. You don't wanna know.
Well, what if we find that what if we find we physically can't put a building in this site?
Then I think we tell the people that and move on to Plan B.
And is there a plan B?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
The plan B, you'd have to find a place to build it, and I'm gonna tell you, running out of ideas, the only open lot that I know in this town of Greenland right now that's commercial is next to the Mercedes-Benz dealer.
Yeah.
That's the only lot that I can even think about that would be even close to suitable.
And that's solid wetland.
And that's what.
And I'm gonna tell you, I looked at that piece of property when it went up for sale years and years ago. And, Jimmy McKenzie ended up buying that piece of property and to this day, I don't know how they put that in.
Yeah, Mercedes, yeah, I know.
What about, Ralph, what about the property where the Stop and Go was going to go, where Lowe's is? There's a big hunk of land right there.
The third pad.
Third pad.
Lowe's.
And when, the problem is we'd be leasing that land, Bob, because that'd be a lease deal. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I'm not saying it's a good one either.
So I have another question, and
I mean, probably a little premature to be looking at another course of action. I just gotta find
So,
out.
yeah, I don't want to derail that conversation, but let's say, for example, we can find that we can put piling in, or you hit bedrock and it can support this. Does that significantly change the cost and all of that for putting up this building when you have to do so much?
Imagine we have to get the dry pylons, and how far we have to drive.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's innovative technologies out there. And those innovative technologies allow people to build where they've never been able to build before.
Okay.
Understanding that those innovative technologies are expensive.
Come with a price
Yeah,
tag.
right, okay.
So,
Ramber Valley right behind us, that wouldn't be there without innovative technology. There are many septic systems out there. There are advanced septic systems. They're expensive to put in and they require regular maintenance in order to keep them functioning.
So it can be done.
It can be done.
so, the only thing we can hope for is, what we have over there is pretty good gravel, or we don't, it's not too wet, or it's gonna hold the load and all that, which Jim's gonna look into it, hopefully pretty soon, and we'll go from
So
there.
is there money to hire, I guess, whatever architect or designer to establish the feasibility of this site? I mean, is that really step one?
Yes, we do have funds that were in the warrant.
Yeah, 75,000?
That would allow us to get this type of septic analysis and geotech analysis to tell us what the site can actually do.
Okay.
Well, we already dug over there, the geotech has already been done, some of this has been done, we don't know how extensive it's been involved with it.
And the answer is maybe, and we need Jim Marchese's help to tell us what more we need to know.
So that's what I guess, whoever you hire to look and do this is gonna go through and say, this meets the requirements,
What I'm
gonna
gonna
go,
do-
or I'm gonna have to do more, or whatever it is.
I'm gonna try to pull together as much information as I can that the town already has, so that we're not spending money on reinventing things.
Okay.
Instead,
we
these
better-
are the pieces of the puzzle that we know, you may have to do some more investigative work.
With your expertise, you'll tell us where the gaps are and what we need to know.
Is this company still in business that did it before?
New Hampshire Soils Consultants is no longer in business.
Okay.
Altus Engineering, however, is.
Could do it, yeah.
So maybe we got something there that they might have something on file, but they know this anyways, maybe save us a little bit of money, but I'm sure it's gonna.
We also have a 2013 study of this entire site that was done by Underwood. So we've got a lot of survey information and approximate dimensions and things like
Now,
that.
you said site, you say this whole place?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
Is that the one they used to have up on the poster boards here, so I'm trying to remember when we went
right
there.
there.
This is the one they did 6 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah.
And again, it's good information. It's not dispositive, but it helps to understand what people were thinking at the time.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's the first order of business, and something else we need to think about and we need to discuss is we kind of want to make this building, if we're going to do this, look like the rest of the center of town and not look like an eyesore of a commercial building, make it look like the town hall in that area or something of that
Right.
nature.
Is all of this, depending on the site plan though, is it more than just the fire department? Is it the whole municipal complex piece?
No,
Or
this
is
is
it
just the
actually
fire
divided?
Just the fire department.
So far. So
When they get that done, then they're gonna tackle this.
No, so the decision is made then that they are not connected then, or not,
Well,
or that option exists later on, I guess is how it
The
is.
only thing we know is that Ralph has a set of basic needs, and that it could go over on the public works side, it could go here, and no decision has been made about which is better.
But your preference was over there for some reason, wasn't it?
Public safety,
So-
put public safety on one side of the driveway and have the town hall by its, over here by itself.
But what's the
Public-
rationale? People not getting hit and
No,
trucks
people,
coming out?
just public safety and, you know, we have a problem with police or fire, at least we're on one side of the driveway. We have a big incident going, we're not trying to, I'll go back to the
All
Maloney.
right, so it's not competing with,
No, we're
other
not
traffic
competing, but we had the Maloney shooting and we had a mess over here, we had a mess at the police station and the whole complex was kind of tied up. And, you know, God forbid we don't have any more of those, because that was the longest weeks of our year, of our lives, I think. But, I think we're better off to keep it on one side of have their own, like a kind of, two separate buildings, but one complex. And, you know, because we're pretty lucky to get along so well with the PDs, and we're working so closely with the PD also, so that works out pretty well also.
And that doesn't happen everywhere. No. There's a lot of towns where they're physically separated by miles on purpose because they don't get along. The police chiefs and fire chiefs historically have conflict. We have a good situation.
And
beatings will continue
And I can
until
bring this
morale
up.
improves.
we built the Stratham Fire Station, and the beginning of that whole thing was supposed to be PD and fire in the same building, and they built this Taj Mahal, which, yes, they were very lucky that the Stratham Fair pays a lot of that. Then the PD just wanted to be away from it, and I don't know the whole story of that. And so they went up and did their own PD, and the fire department's got a pretty nice place. This is not even gonna be close right away.
No.
Not the way I even want it to be close. I don't want a Taj Mahal. I want an operating fire department that we can go in and have our bays and have our bunk rooms, and I'm not looking to have swimming pools or whirlpools or whatever else we're gonna have in there. That's not, what we need.
Well, one of the things in reporting back to the selectmen and to the people too, I mean, we were trying to put 2 people on this year and that has not worked. And so, to a certain extent, we've got a field of dreams here. It's like if we build it, then the firemen will come.
Well, I got, on that note, I put it out for a second time. Right now I have 11 applications come back. I have not opened them because it hasn't closed. It's closing the end of the month. Then I will open them and see what we have applicants there. The first go around, I put it in as lieutenants, trying to get somebody who's already in the fire service and wants to become a lieutenant is a little difficult on the starting up fire station. So I went back and rethought that and had conversations, and we've had many conversations over this. And maybe we just hire 2 firefighters and work our way up as we go, make our own group instead of using somebody else's group. But that's what I did on the second one. And right now the first time we only had 5, and 3 of them were in-house. They're all missing something. Either they're missing the CDL, they're missing their CPAT, or they're missing a portion of, they don't have their medic. So at this point, we're trying to, I reopened it back up and we put it out for 3 weeks, and it closes this Monday. I'm gonna sit down. I have another fire chief that was around for a long time, Skip Sullivan, who's very knowledgeable, and him and I are gonna go through them and see what we if we have any feasible applicants. But again, this is growing pains like every other small department went through years ago. You take the Newingtons and you take the Northamptons and you take the Rise, and now there's a bunch of other people going up for this stuff too and looking for per diem people. MRI's doing a study in Fremont for the same thing. So then now everybody's looking for per diem people. So that's that's firefighters. Sometimes retirement system isn't the best in the world, and it seems to be getting a little bit worse. And I think you know more about that than I do. there is a lot of firefighters out there, but there's a lot of, they need to have a lot of,
Training?
training and able to do things. It's not like the old days.
And Tara, and you and Tara and I sat down at a meeting one time, and I think Tara said that she would reach out and see what she could come up with too, to try to help you with that, so.
Right, we're trying to do this, but we're also trying to stay in budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
no, absolutely, and I'm not trying to explode this. I gotta tell you, our calls are up. We're doing a great job. The per diem people that we have over there now are getting hired other places. And they're not putting in here because they want to go to, I had one guy just go to Rochester. I got some other guys going to ambulance companies because the only problem with ambulance companies is there's no retirement. You know, you go to that and it's not a state retirement, and that's the only good thing we got coming. And we're gonna end up hiring younger people. And I'm gonna have to train them the way I wanna train them. And secondly, I always, when we first started this a year ago, I said this was gonna be the toughest year of my life, trying to in this fight of them, trying to get this going, and I knew it was gonna be, you know. We've come leaps and bounds from where we were 4 years ago. There's a lot more calls, it's crazy. We're out the door like that. The nights, has been fine, it's not like that, but, you know, we're in between the 5 and the 7 minute deal.
Okay.
So we're doing fine there. The bunk rooms worked. They're not the best bunk rooms in the world. But they're bunk rooms. So.
Okay, well-
That's the story, where we're going, and this is, as the question you were asking, you know, we're trying to build a station so we can have, you have an office, have a bunk room downstairs, and the other people would be upstairs, and you know, hopefully we could have 3 or 4 bunk rooms upstairs also.
I mean, what do we think what's our population now?
Between 38
30,
and
yeah.
4,000.
And with other land coming available or other I mean, do we have a projection for 10 years out? I mean, do we expect a bunch more subdivisions
It
and
all depends upon water.
schools?
If the water line goes in on Breakfast Hill Road, if that does happen, then I would expect that, and I've said this publicly many times, I would expect the golf course to close and have 350 houses. Okay?
Yeah,
I know that the area that we call Sanderson's Pond, you know, that's been a generational shift. That will develop. That's 350 acres between Greenland and Northampton.
so there's another 300 houses.
300 plus.
So that's significant, exponential.
And then we've also had our 3rd generational shift in the Beck family. Okay, and I expect that will continue along. And they have 300 to 400 acres that could turn into 300 to 400 houses. And I fully expect, that Breakfast Hill would be municipal water. I fully expect that Sanderson's Pond area will be municipal water that will come in from Aquarian. And then the Beck stuff is unknown.
I mean, that's a completely different face of Greenland.
Oh, yeah.
Schools and
I'm
infrastructure down
thinking
and-
700 to 900 houses. And the development pressure is here because of the jobs they're putting in at Pease.
You know, then you gotta realize what we do have. We have the truck stop. That's quite a few of our calls. I'm targeting those to not really affect us much, maybe 3 or 4 calls a year. 95 is just gotten crazier, and people are driving crazy, and there's many more
Now,
cars.
I'm assuming, is there like a specific staffing methodology that goes with fire departments based on population growth and certain types of industry and stuff around that you have to serve, or?
Fire department growth is a tough question, of course, and it goes back to what we were just talking about, the growth of the town. You know, we're just lucky enough in this area, we have this Seacoast Chiefs, and we call it a mutual aid district. And we're very lucky that, and it saves us a lot of money, because if we have any big instances, like we had the bus crash on the 95, I had people there right away. I mean, we were very lucky that the other towns all signed this mutual aid agreement, and they're ready to go with us. We're lucky to have the Newingtons and the Portsmouths and the Ryes and the Northamptons. You know, we went all the way to Exeter that day, and we were pulling ambulance in from there. But it's the mutual aid district also saved us money. We got a command post that PD and fire both use. We have air trailers that we don't have to buy. So we get it's portable cascade systems, and we have them around the Seacoast area. There's 3 of them at this point. So, and that's a grant that we got because we're so big.
I guess if there's that much growth, there's a lot more discussion than just fire department.
There's no doubt about that.
Copley and water is a big propelling factor. So, yeah. Well, anyway, there's that, but essentially what happens over time is we had historically had a fire department that was $200,000 to $300,000 a year. By the time this thing gets built, and by the time we deal with debt service and people, we're at $1.5 million a year.
There's number 6 call for the day, just coming in now. It's just been crazy.
Yeah. And so we're going to be 5 times bigger than we were.
So this really does, to your point earlier, it needs to be a building that can grow.
Expand. Yeah.
So that helps.
Right.
How it's going to play.
Right. And, you know, then we could grow if we go over either place. I don't really want to get into a ball field, but I think the next lot down is going to be an opportunity. You know, I think it's
That's just a planning consideration for where that gets set.
but trying to grow out back here, we're going to get closer and closer into those wetlands and into the ball fields, because the wetlands is just not working out.
Yeah. Oh, and I fully expect that we might take Paul Hayden's operation and the winter maintenance, and that may go up to the transfer station. May have to. You know, might as well put the worst polluting things up where the pollution's already worst. So.
But also, this is another reason why you've got to get that CIP organized and going too.
Yeah. So.
Okay, well,
So
Jim, you're going to go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so kind of what's the plan for this group? I mean, is it recurring meetings, or is it gonna wait to see next steps?
My thing is, my goal, and I think the goal of this committee should be to be able to present everything being equal. If all the ground can hold the building, so forth and so on, that before the end of December, that we can come up to the Board of Selectmen, the Budget Committee in the town, and say, we've got a plan here. This is how much, you know, with budgets in place and designs in place and everything else, and be able to put this on the warrant article for next year.
My question to Jim is, what is a reasonable time for them to look at this and give us some sort of answer, which way we have to go
For me, I can
for them?
have things together in 2 weeks, and then we can decide what we have for information and what engineering firms that we want to go to, or what direction we want to take next.
And I'd like to still proceed as if the ground will hold. All right, I'd like to keep the wheels moving here.
And that's fine, you know, especially because when we say, when we're talking about will it hold it, if we give them a better idea of what it is, that's going to help when the engineering does that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's perfectly fine to go concurrently.
Yeah. So, to my way of thinking, that we should move on to developing wants and needs, a floor plan, scope of work, and be able to have something to give to a design, build, construction management firm. And the future agenda would be to continue anything from this meeting right here. And then at the next meeting, maybe select a design, build management firm.
Yeah, now, one thing we know we have in place is MRI did their analysis
Yeah.
of what the department ought to be. And maybe at our next meeting, we can all read that and go through and say, I agree or disagree with the points they came up with, you know, and put those on as the parameters.
Mhm.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine. You know, and I think, which I will take on, I'd like to talk to the chiefs and the Seacoast chiefs and say, you guys built buildings, where did you go wrong and where did you go right?
Well, yeah, Jim had that same idea, yeah.
So I have been doing
Right.
And I can do that just through a meeting and just have a conversation. Was this the right way to go? Was this the wrong way to go? And what was happening? And I understand you did some of that.
Yeah, I did some of that with the town of.
You got two different answers out of one of them.
Yeah, and it's amazing the different types of answers that you
You
get.
get an answer, one answer out of a chief and a different answer out of a firefighter, and
Right,
just because they don't like it.
right.
That's
Yeah.
the end of that. I think
You
we
gotta
all-
just, you can decipher, you gotta
You
decipher.
could feel through that.
Yeah.
You know, we got the town of Brentwood who built a nice fire station. Newcastle built a nice fire station. Portsmouth, built, it's supposed to be a green building, but I'm not sure how green it really was.
Yeah.
And I'm not downing them for that, but they had their problems also. Stratham built the Taj Mahal, as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
A very big station, and it's a very nice station.
And to me, it's like,
Any city would like to have it.
it's identifying those requirements. I mean, I would think that the design firm, I mean, we give them the requirements based on, like I said, whether it's a staffing methodology or, hey, we want a fire department that will meet these needs in 10 years, a population of X,
Right.
this type of industry or residential that's around here, and this type of work that we expect out of, scope of work out of the fire department, and we need is something that's, so given that, now you build,
Right.
whatever it is, we need. I mean, it's,
Well, for example, too, Ralph knows his trucks, his equipment, and what he's likely to have in the future. And it's not the same as what you would find in the Portsmouth Central Fire Station. Totally different equipment. You need at least one bay that's gonna be devoted to ambulance type things. And then your other trucks, you've designed this building so far as to be drive right through.
Yes.
And so we would need to place it on the lot such that you meet your turning template, so you can get these 10-wheelers out around, without running out of ground.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, but I mean, you want primarily pumper trucks, you're not looking at hook and ladder.
I'm not looking at a ladder truck, and I'm gonna tell you, the Seacoast Chiefs, another thing we've done is we use each other off. We have a tank truck, Portsmouth don't have a tank truck. They have a ladder truck, we use their ladder truck. We have a hose reel with 3,000 feet of 4-inch hose on it. Nobody else in this Seacoast area has a reel truck. And that's why I decided to keep on buying this, so we all share what we have.
each town uses
Each
what
town
other
has
towns have,
five
manufacturers for what you
And we
need.
don't,
He'll know the type of equipment he needs to house now and in the future for that reason.
What about training areas and towers and stuff like that? Is there something centrally that's
no,
used by folks?
we use
or-
Concord, we still have Brentwood still up, running. There's some towns that are doing some training area, Portsmouth's got theirs. This is something we all use together.
So that's not a need for Greenland then, we use.
They've also learned a lot about dispatch and EOCs. We don't need an EOC. Right now, you could practically take an apple and throw it over the fence and hit the next EOC. I mean, they're all so close around here. We don't need to build another one of those. We don't need to do dispatch because Rockingham does that. So that type of thing doesn't have to happen here because it would be redundant. But it does potentially have to serve as an emergency location for people in the event of a hurricane or a flood or something like that. It may also have to handle voting. Because we may get kicked out of the school, and I don't blame them. That's just the way it is. So it's those types of needs. There isn't any like standard package. It's how he fits into this whole mutual aid with the Seacoast Chiefs and the particular equipment that Greenland is expected to have as part of that whole overall plan.
Am I saying we're not gonna need a second ambulance down the road, 5, 10 years? If we talk about the growth we're talking about, if we put in, you put in 900 houses, yeah, it's a good possibility you're gonna need a second ambulance. You need spare vehicles now because of the computer systems they're putting in these vehicles, and they're always down.
Yeah.
That's what I'm having trouble with them.
You put in one
right now.
convenient MD and your ambulance calls go up and up the roof.
Yeah, that's something, if we ever decided to put a convenient MD into this area, that's something we really need to discuss. Because is it do well for revenue? Stratum increased their calls tremendously. And then,
But
it's
from
only
what-
one
from
mile
there
from the hospital.
going out to the hospital?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's one at the bottom of the hill where I work in Concord on Loudon Road. And literally, there's an ambulance, a Concord ambulance that just goes back and forth and back and forth. Because someone is always coming in and they're finding a problem that needs ER treatment. And they have treatment. And so the Concord ambulance does maybe 12, 14 runs a day from that one convenient MD to Concord Hospital.
Now Portsmouth Hospital put an emergency room in Seabrook.
Right.
So now there's one ambulance service 10 to 12 times a day running out of that there to Portsmouth Hospital. Dover's doing the same type of thing because they got that place over in Pease. I still call it Pease.
Yes.
And they're doing the same exact thing. So are we doing well ambulance revenue? Yeah, we do pretty well ambulance revenue. Is it gonna continue? Yeah, I think it is. Towns that don't have ambulances, I think they're kind of missing the boat because they don't transport it and they call in another town and they're still doing the same number of calls, so they're still paying the people to do them. And they're not getting their bang for the buck.
So would it be fair for our next meeting to get the MRI thing out to all of us, read it,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can come back and say whether we agree or disagree, and then that gives you the parameters that will help Jim to understand where the gaps are.
Is that something you can send electronically, or do we need to come down here and pick it up?
I'm pretty sure we have it electronically.
I'm not sure.
When I did that study with MRI, there was 2 days we just drove around this town and had conversations about it, and they couldn't believe how far out we really go.
Do you still have?
I'll check with Charlotte tomorrow and see if she can get one out.
Do you still have
I'm pretty
email
sure we
addresses
have
and
it.
stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there was an email that went out.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you
All
get
right,
it?
yeah, sure, yeah, I was on my Chromecast. Okay.
I will check with Charlotte tomorrow.
Okay.
You get it out to everybody,
So that will allow us,
including you.
to start figuring out what it ought
Well,
to be. And John's got a good start there too. I mean, he's got probably your equipment needs in there. And we would take the MRI information and talk about potential bunk areas and how much training area you need, and that kind of stuff. To do a little more fine tuning as to what that building ought to be. But in essence, it's an 80 by 90 building. Which would be a giant slab of concrete. And that would be heavy.
Was the determination made, whenever this would get built, like what happens back here? Is they saving that for something else, or does that get demoed, the current one?
That's something else that needs to be talked about.
What we've done on the board this year, Kevin, is we decided that we would fix the roof in order to preserve it, because in the meantime, it could be Paul Hayden. We have no idea what's going to happen at the library location. It might be a part of the library solution, we don't know. There are also additional things that happen just within the town itself.
So it's preserving the infrastructure for the
Yeah.
time being.
I gotta tell you, the only problem I see on that building, as far as the fire station goes, is the size of the doors and what's
For any other
between the two doors. You know, these, we're 12 by 12 over there. No, I don't think we're 12 by 12, I think we're 12 by 10, and these are 14 by 14s. Yeah,
Yeah, we handle also truck and trailer with no problem. But, you know, let's suppose that we went to a public works building where we had real trucks and plows with wings that we wanted to get inside, then a 12-foot door is not gonna make it.
right. So, you know, there is an issue what we're doing, if we decide to, that building decides whatever we're gonna do with it. Is it a good building for something? Yes.
Yeah.
You know, is it a good addition to this, to voting? It could be used for voting, it could be used for town meetings, it could be used for a lot of stuff.
Well, and maybe a community, any number of different things, a community room.
It could be, you know, it could be used for many different things.
Sure. Yeah. And that's why we decided we'd preserve it, you know, but not try to spend money on windows and doors and modifications.
I agree.
Until we figured out.
Figure out which way we're going with it first, because we're gonna close in those doors and make it a multi-purpose room or whatever we're gonna use it for.
Yeah. Well, once that was figured out, then do that type of work.
Right.
But if it was leaking horribly through the roof and about to collapse, that wasn't gonna work.
That's a different story. Right.
That's an easier fix, excuse me.
Yeah.
That's an easy, once we get the roof done, yes, do we have some other stuff to take care of? Yes, we do.
Minor things.
Well, I don't know if it's minor or not,
No.
well, it's not gonna be cheap, but there's no sense in tearing the place down if you've got a perfectly good building.
Yeah, and that's what we were trying to keep, was the fact that it was structurally sound.
Structure of the building.
I tend to look at things as through a demographic lens, more so than engineering. And what's a couple of things that I'm processing right now is that if the image of expanded Greenland, okay, but what is that? Who are the people who are living here? To get to the point of, you got 10, 12 ambulances running a day in Concord going back and forth. Is there a demographic situation where there is a population that will need to be serviced more frequently, and which is happening. So not only do we look at just the sheer tonnage, the number of people, when we look at what that population looks like from a demographic and meeting that need, then in addition to that, with a very specific question to you, Paul, if a water line comes down Breakfast Hill Road, when would that happen?
That in part depends upon the state drinking water groundwater trust fund,
Right.
and whether that project in fact could be built. What I've come to learn from Servant on that is a project that could potentially be done without $1 of Greenland taxpayer money.
Right.
And so it may not be up to us at all. For example, Portsmouth is buying 3 acres at what we call the Chick property, which is the entrance into the Maloney Field. We didn't even know about it until I found it out on the Drinking Water Trust Fund that they were looking for a grant for half of the money.
So Portsmouth's buying piece of property in Greenland
Without even telling us.
That's because it's private property.
no, I understand that, but if
So looking to
something's
expand the pumping station footprint?
No, they're just looking for it for wellhead protection.
Oh,
So that's how I process things, and that's the kind of question that's always going to be running through my mind. Is my hopeful that can be my contribution to this thing, is looking at that kind of picture. I don't know what the picture is.
Is it a retirement population or is it not? Those are
Right,
two
because-
totally
because-
different
Because
things.
we also, then earlier you mentioned too, or somebody did, about what's going on out here at Pease Development Authority with all these jobs coming in. That's a younger population. So what are we building to, if indeed this happens? So that affects the because the police department in Newington is a much different police department than it is here.
Mhm.
Because you've got that whole power, it's a much different ordinance
Yeah.
setup. That's what I know about where the places that I serve here, so we have really some serious, significant demographic, structural, people, service situations to consider, not just putting up a building that holds some more equipment.
Do you know,
That's all
so if there's a big chunk of land, I mean, hey, it's a free country, I mean, but if someone was gonna come in and wanna put 200 homes up, you know, and buys property for that, what power does the town have to regulate it? Like, if we knew that was gonna go in to say, like, a school can't handle it, a fire department can't handle it, at what point is like, well, you can build all that, but frankly, the infrastructure for the rest of the town doesn't exist? Is there any checks and balances, or it's a free country, and, you know, from zoning permits and everything else?
We can back up a little further on that, because we went through this 20 years ago on commercial land on Route 33. Used to be 101. And the town fought that to no end. They wanted no more commercial.
I mean, now you're educating me more than dealing with this.
No,
Well, I think this is important stuff. It is for me, anyway, to understand the picture that what we're presented with here.
Right, the answer to your question is, if a person comes in and they comply with the ordinance, they have to be granted approval. Okay, so what that means is you have to get your planning board to get an ordinance in shape to do the things that you're worried about. And
So if you wanna stunt growth or do anything,
Well,
then that's the
Well,
right
do
choice.
any towns in New Hampshire have a growth ordinance?
many, they do. And
So that would be a way to control growth.
that is a timing thing, and in order to have a growth ordinance or an impact fee ordinance, because the other thing you can do is for each house collect so much money for the fire department, so much money for the library, so much money for water or whatever, but you have to identify what those projects are in your capital improvement plan, which is why we're trying to get that back on track. And then you also have to actually build those capital improvements that you say you're going to build. Because if you don't, the money you collect within the impact fees goes back within 6 years to the developer. Okay, so that's the deal.
Major planning exercise.
Yeah, it is. Now, what we traditionally have had here is we have had our open space because our soils are relatively poor. We have lots and lots of alluvial clay and lots of wet.
But a lot of clay.
Yeah, which is why we've always had big lots, big septic systems, and frankly, miles and miles of extra road.
Yeah.
You know, and so that has been our defense, as it were, and why things have stayed open. Because compared to other land in the seacoast, we had lousy development conditions. Now what's happened is the places that had better development conditions are built out, and the developers have no choice but to come to our more difficult soils and find a way. And just as you find in Branford, they found a way, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
And I can assure you, as we talk about Breakfast Hill, that has lots and lots of wet areas. But if you have municipal water and you no longer have to have separation of septic from a well with a 75-foot curve, 75-foot drawdown area, then all of a sudden things can become put together in conservation or cluster subdivisions, and they can get done.
Can I ask you a question about the water and the septic? Is Portsmouth ever gonna expand what they have going on their sewer in the town of Greenland?
Okay. When you take a look at Portsmouth with their water and sewer, they're each what are called enterprise funds.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the voters in Portsmouth as such, it's the enterprise fund. So if they are to expand these things, it's based upon making money. Okay. Now, they're putting in a $100 million sewer plant, and they're also getting thousands more jobs out on Pease, which means that there's probably going to have to be a sewer plant there too. Okay? When they're trying to deal with the debt service, on somewhere between 150 and 200 million dollars. They need customers.
So at this point, the sewer coming from the city of Portsmouth goes all the way to Tractor Supply. Am I correct in saying that at this point?
No, that's a private line. That's not public.
I mean, I understand that the sewer line is owned privately, but it comes from, it is Portsmouth.
It goes to the transportation center. That's where it ends up.
But that's where it stops, right? It stops at Tractor Supply at this point?
There are two lines. They're both private. One is from Lowe's Target on that side of the road. The other is from the truck stop.
Truck stop, that's private,
But it
And how
goes
do
to
they-
Tractor Supply.
Not Tractor Supply.
not Tractor Supply.
Tractor Supply is not covered.
No, not
Right.
So they're on a regular septic system then?
Yes.
Is that correct, Jim? I don't you know.
Yeah, they are.
I know Lowe's and Target are tied in, but.
And that's a private line, their own force main that goes on that side of the road.
Because I know
Who's
the Target
on the
deal
other
was
side?
Was
And
talked
then
to-
force main on the
to
other
Howard
side
Siegel and-
goes to just the truck
he
stop.
wanted so much money, it was pathetic.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Right.
Do you think that line will ever be extended?
There's.
You gotta remember that those lines were built to handle the waste from those facilities.
That's
Those are
it.
low-pressure force mains.
Yes.
Okay.
And they have a very limited capacity.
So there's nothing that can be added on to,
There probably is some that could be added on, but it's not like you could add a 100-lot subdivision.
and it's just like natural gas to it. We've talked
I guess
about-
the question is, could it go down to the Winnicott River?
No,
Could it? Yeah.
well, those lines could not without substantial modification.
Right.
Yeah. Now, there is a plan, and it was done back years ago, where they estimated taking it up to the Post Road intersection and then along Post Road up to the school, I think it was. And that was a $28 million ask. And I believe that that line was going to go down Portsmouth Avenue and go behind Lowe's and Target and pick up all of that area. Because what I believe will happen is your neighborhood, Bob, eventually, if it gets watered and sewered, that's an area that will turn into light commercial. Okay, and the people will put in offices that it will no longer be economic to have homes there. It will be economic to have light commercial.
Would you give me a,
Now, I recognize I just practically gave my.
I'm like getting ready to like. You wasn't ready, now I want to go.
We're gonna open the night, like a sell the God thing.
I was trying to do some.
Oh, I think we're 20 years away from that.
Well, but I mean,
oh, I won't be here, I don't care.
that's the
My
progression.
daughters can deal with it.
That's just the progression I see, that all of Portsmouth Avenue will become more like commercial. And then as we go to Breakfast Hill, we know we've got 50 acres of open land right behind Bethany Church that could be workforce housing. And we know that we've got a golf course that can become whatever that could be. And could it be another Bramber Valley? Could it be what it looks like we have next to McKinnon's in Portsmouth, workforce housing?
Yeah,
Yeah, all of it. That's all possible. if
That
you
is
were-
crazy, by the way.
and that's not all.
McKinnon's.
Well, yeah,
My old church, St. James,
John,
he's putting up 4 buildings there, they're gonna be condos.
and I think it's 40 some odd units, right? Yeah. And I'm just saying that that's all possible when you bring in infrastructure. Because the limiting factor we have here is clean water in and dirty water out.
See, I moved here back in 1967 because it was a nice, quiet little town.
Yeah.
Now I made a big mistake.
No, really?
Oh, get the hell
Where
out.
would you have moved them?
I go back to Maine.
I remember back in 1960 when Post Road was a stop sign.
Yeah,
There were no lights at all,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, these things happen.
The water,
95 was 2 lanes.
yes.
That's right.
I used to go snowmobiling up there and watch them build that road at the circle and everything, yeah, back when we,
Sewer
back in the
lawbreaker.
70s. The water on Portsmouth Avenue,
Yeah.
where's it come from?
On Portsmouth Avenue?
Yeah.
That comes from Greenland Well.
That's what I keep telling my wife. She says, no, it comes from Portsmouth. I said, it does not.
No, it ties in.
They have a system that back and flows.
Right.
But primarily it comes from Greenland Well.
That's what,
Our water is much better than
yeah, most certainly is.
a lot of Portsmouth's water.
Well, but understand that it all connects to the Pease area, and sometimes they back it this way, and
Yeah.
sometimes it goes that way. It all depends on what the system needs that day. You know, and some of that comes from the Bellamy River, and some of it comes from other parts of Madbury. They were gonna put a well over on Banfield Road, but they backed off of that. Who knows?
That's all wetlands too.
Yeah.
I think we're getting off track a little bit.
Yeah, we are. Let's get back on
I think we have an idea where we're headed. I think the first thing we do is see what Jim can come up with in the next 2 weeks, and then get another meeting going until we can continue and,
Yeah, and I think in the meantime, if we read the
Check on
MRI
the
study
septic.
and then agree
We'll
or disagree
understand
with
too.
what they recommended.
All right. Okay. So when do we want to get back together?
what's the calendar show?
Yeah, we have to look at this calendar because we can't,
Selectmen are meeting on September 4th,
yeah.
so the week after that,
Does that give you enough time to put this stuff together?
He says 2 weeks.
Read?
How about Thursday night, the, I'm not in town.
What else is new?
Oh, be quiet. Or am I in town?
Not gonna be in Florida?
No, I think I got a conference. I'm here the 11th and 12th. Is this,
Oh, excuse me.
you got time enough to do that, Jim, by the 11th?
Tuesday the 11th?
That is the primary day.
Okay.
Yeah, go to the 12th.
Oh, that's
Be
right.
careful about
That
that.
is primary day.
That is. I'm at the 12th, bro. Well, the 19th, yeah.
You got a meeting the 10th, right? No, you don't.
no, the selectmen are.
The 12th has got the Conservation Commission meeting.
We don't have to meet here, I think we could do it in a smaller office. I mean,
I think those Wednesdays are gonna be
Well,
easier for me.
we need to have the
Hindsight
recording.
now that I'm looking.
Wednesday's the bad, you said?
I think it's gonna be the
I've got
better
a digital
one.
recorder we can use, so that's not.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you wanted to do it Wednesday, do you have room in your fire department?
Yeah, fire department, we could even go over there, can't we, into the town hall, over cross side?
Well, we'll find a place, one way or the other. We
Hey,
can find a
go to the
place.
Vets Hall. God,
Yeah, we could even
we could
do
do
it
the
there.
Vets Hall on a Wednesday night.
September.
Oh, no, they play
12th.
cards there.
Wednesday, September 12th.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so I've got a digital recorder, I can just send Charlotte a file.
Okay.
It's no problem.
7 o'clock.
Conservation, how big is that committee?
How big is
There's
it?
4 on it, 1, 2, 3, 4. They,
Are you going to that?
I drop in once in a while, there's maybe three people on the conservation.
So where do you want to have it?
Well, we could do it here, they could go somewhere else, or, there's. I don't care where we go. We can go,
Send me
or my office, I don't
Send
care.
me to
Is the
Grizzly
room on your
Square
side
and
or
ask
the,
me.
Is the room on the other side there? No?
I can go in my office, we can,
Do you want to meet at the Vets Hall?
Can we can use Vets
that-
Hall.
that's okay too.
All right, why don't we meet at the Vets Hall?
7 again?
What?
Yeah.
What day though?
That's going to
The
be
12th.
September 12th.
No, no.
That's a Wednesday.
They play cards there Wednesday nights.
Oh, they do? Oh, okay.
Okay,
We have a conflicting card game.
Well, listen,
Yeah, we gotta do that.
Even though Vaughn and I belong, there's still, we have other members that function there besides us, so they've been doing it for years. I used to play.
You know something?
Keep one of
No,
us.
honestly, we
How
could
about
hold it in Karen's office, we could hold it in the town clerk's office, so.
Yeah.
There's no problem.
We'll find a place here.
Yeah, we'll do it at the town hall.
we put that together in somewhere, how about your office, Jim?
Yeah, we'll find a spot here.
Yeah.
Sorry about the Thursday, I'm messed up,
That's all right.
2 Thursdays. No, I'm not.
So that's September 12th, fire department meeting at the town hall.
Okay, and in the meantime, Jim is working on stuff, and we'll find a way to get the MRI study out to everybody electronically.
I will talk to Charlotte tomorrow, yep.
Very good.
Do we wanna make more copies, small copies? Can we do that for everybody, or
More
you,
copies of this?
you wanna hold off until do we figure
No,
everything else out?
I wanna, let's make some copies so people have homework. I think it's a good idea.
We're adjourned.